Okay, hi everyone. Good evening, good morning, almost good night. Welcome to our DIMH 2022 cross-country panel. We've got several representatives talking about different countries, and please, by all means, use the chat to have any questions. And you'll see also that we've got the countries in the chat as well. So today we'll be speaking with Dominic, who's going to be talking about mental health in Ukraine. Then we're going to be hearing from Wuri talking about mental health in South Korea, followed by Alejandro talking about mental health in Mexico, and then finally from Hannah about mental health in Finland. So I appreciate all of your time. You're in various places around the world. And yes, I really look forward to this panel and learning a lot about the context of each of these countries and the work that you're doing. So I wanted to just start with a brief introduction. So if each of you don't mind introducing yourselves to our viewers.
So I'm Dominic. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Overcome. We're a mental health organization that essentially is aiming to facilitate global mental health treatment accessibility through the delivery of digital therapeutics and peer guidance models to low and middle income countries. So we work in Turkey, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Ukraine, which we speak about today. Thank you for having me.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the invitation to Dr. Becky Inster. I'm Alejandro Dominguez Rodriguez. I'm director of ITLAS. That means Internet Treatment for Latin America and Spain. And what we are doing is, I'm going to explain on the presentation later, but basically providing free psychological based on evidence treatments, and that are online. And most of them, we are colleagues from many universities with special focus on Latin America, including some countries of Europe, so far Spain and Netherlands, but expanding. Thank you.
And from South Korea, yes, yeah.
Hello, I'm Wuri, Dr. Moon. I'm a founder and the CEO of Verify, and we are providing a program called Mindly. This is a 100% self-care online software based on schema therapy. And nice to meet you.
Thank you. And Anna.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Anna Karttunen. I work in Sekasin Kollektiivi, mental collective, I suppose is the English term, and in the Sekasin Gaming Discord server, to be precise. And I'm a developer of psychosocial support in there, and I'm very excited to tell you what we do, but that is later.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you all. And so we're going to start with Dominic, and you have 5-minute presentation if you don't mind, and I will keep us all to time.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, and thank you, Becky, for setting this up. It's really important to spotlight various countries. I really appreciate being here. So before I start on Ukraine, I do want to contextualize the work we do. So essentially, we operate on 2 strategic pillars. So we essentially distribute free evidence-based digital therapeutics, the guidance models via a digital apothecary that we've created. And then from our second department, which is kind of R&D, we look into various neglected areas in global mental health and essentially investigate the ethnocultural tailoring of digital therapeutics and peer guidance models. Most therapeutics have been developed for beneficiaries in the West. And this is really problematic for many reasons. Essentially, treatment efficacy, engagement, adherence, safety will not translate over to a point where it actually should be at optimum. So this is essentially how we run. And we also run stigma reduction campaigns within these countries, but not necessarily Ukraine. So within Ukraine, as you can imagine, the situation is getting increasingly worse. There are a lot of people that need help. There's at least 3.5 million supposedly estimated from the WHO that are in need. And as with these figures, they're always severely underestimated, and it's very, very difficult. The error bars are very high. So essentially what we're doing is we're translating 2 of our partners' apps. So we have Cogito. It's a metacognitive training and cognitive behavioral therapy app developed by our partners at UKE, so the University Medical Center Hamburg, at their Clinical Neuropsychology Institute. They have various packages on there, from psychosis to PTSD, from anxiety, depression. And then we're also essentially testing these within a small pilot study in order to kind of feedback the data, improve the app, and then therefore increase treatment efficacy, engagement, and adherence. And then we're going to take it over into Ukraine, like surrounding host countries for refugees, and also within the UK. So we're part of a technical working group set up by the WHO. It was essentially, there was a project initiated by the First Lady, Elena Zelenska. It's a national program for mental health and psychosocial support. It's being implemented by the Ministry of Health, so Viktor Liashko and his surrounding delegates, but also coordinated by the WHO. So what they're essentially doing is trying to provide an effective coordinated response. In times of crisis and crisis contexts, what you can't have is very many kind of organizations throwing different ideas at once. So essentially what we'd had to do is spend a month planning, looking at how we can each contribute to its optimum in certain at oblast level and also nationally. And then once our applications have been developed and tested, and we've had feedback, and we've also improved these, we're essentially going to roll these out within Ukraine and within surrounding host countries. So one of the issues with, say, crisis context is obviously with digital therapeutics, it's very hard there's very little evidence base for a lot of apps. So there's about 3 to 5% of apps actually have an evidence base. Many of these, even the ones that do not have externally corroborated randomized control trials, and even the samples that they use will be small, they'll be non-randomized, non-controlled. With non-randomized, non-controlled studies, samples, you can't really confirm that the reduction in symptomology from any mental health condition is actually because of the app or any other external factors. So this is why the testing is so necessary. So there's been about 225 confirmed attacks on health centers. This is why digital is so important. I won't have to rattle through in terms of the benefits of apps, whether it's scalability, whether it's 24-hour access, convenience. But there's also one thing that does need to be considered, and there are also many downfalls. So this is why we created this apothecary. This is why we are working with advisors in multiple domains, whether it's public health, cybersecurity, whether it's specialized refugee, mental health, in order to ethnoculturally translate, tailor and translate these apps in order to essentially improve the mental health of millions. We're very, very, very lucky, and there's obviously some things that we cannot say at this moment, because obviously it's still under, it's still being developed and it's still being kind of coordinated by WHO, but within a couple of weeks' time, these will roll out. So we really look forward to sharing these with you, and we think it's something that within a crisis context, it's even more important because of kind of the data cybersecurity issues. And because of this, we have to be very, very careful with what we're sharing and how we operate. But the opportunity to share this with you today and maybe to follow the work we're doing as well, is really, really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. I'm sure there's going to be some questions. I certainly have a few. So if everything is working, Maury, can we hear from you, or would you like me to play your video? We're just having a technical.
I would appreciate if you play the video, because I have a technical problem with sharing the screen.
Okay, no problem. What I'm going to do is actually just put the link in the chat, and then I'll share my screen and also play that. So one moment.
Thank you very much.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a lot of different pieces moving around.
So the same happened on my way back to home. My laptop is broken, so I'm doing this with my phone.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I will help you through this. So I'm going to share my screen, and there we go. Okay. Now, before I begin, just if people can, a bit of a delay there. Even my laptop's not in a happy mood.
No.
Okay, I don't not to worry though. I will just redo that. Okay, there we go. I was being too adventurous.
Hello,
Okay.
CEO and founder of 45. Let me introduce our company. So let's begin with some statistics first. Did you know that Korea has the highest suicide rate among the OECD countries? Unfortunately, the suicide rate in Korea is 2.2 times higher than average of OECD countries. And when it comes to the prevalence of depression, Korea is still #1 that cannot be surpassed. situation is even worse now. Post-COVID statistics show 1 in 6 Koreans have thought of suicide, and 1 in 4 are at high risk for depression. The problem is supply is not enough to cover this skyrocketing demand. As a psychiatrist in hospital, I met around 30 patients just in 3 to 4 hours. The average time I can spend with the patient is about like 5 to 10 minutes. No time for building rapport or meaningful counseling. And I was not alone. Korea's National Health Insurance data shows the number of mental health patients grew 8% per year. However, the number of psychiatrists only grew about 3% per year. In other words, the gap between supply and demand widened. The worst part is only 1 in 5 Koreans with mental illness visit hospital. So how are we solving the problem? The fundamental reason of supply and demand imbalance is because the supplies almost 100% depend on human. So it takes average 3 years to decide to see human therapists. Even if you decide, you need to wait a couple of weeks. And finally, when you meet the therapist, you can spend only 5 to 10 minutes on average. If we want more, we need to prepare huge financial burden. But what if a well-designed software to take the place of a human supply, at least to a certain extent? All 3 barriers to mental health care, psychological, physical, and financial, will be lowered, and we will close the gap between supply and demand. That's why we made Mindly, a digital interactive mental care program. So, this is in Korean. So how does it work? Are any of you familiar with the show Super Nanny? The show shows how Super Nanny spot the child's problematic behavior and find the reason behind it, and advise what the caregivers or kids should go forward. She also trained the family to try out the new solution, right? This is exactly how therapy works, and Mindly does the same. Our interactive program helps users to discover their issues and understand where those issues came from and train themselves to overcome them. As everybody has a different mental issue, the program should be tailored as well. Some struggle because they are perfectionistic, some because of an anger issue, and others because they find it too hard to say no. In psychology, we call these patterns schema. Mindly diagnose your schema, our test, and provide a good program with your schema. Sometimes we meet stressful life situations such as like parenting, marriage, or getting a new job. So some of our programs are designed to help you cope with this situation. Okay, that's all good on paper, you might say, but does it work? Does the program really only really help patients without therapist help? The short answer is yes, it does. Our users see as this score, the clinical measurement score for depression, as you know, show that Mindly alleviated depression by 21% in people with mild symptoms and reduced the depression by 36% in people with severe depression. This is significant when you think about the fact that antidepressants reduce depression by around 32% in 6 weeks. Our users were also highly satisfied. 95% of users said Mindly helped their mental health, and they would recommend it to others. So this is what we do here. And if you have any questions or potential guests, let me know. We are open to any kind of inquiries or collaboration. So thank you so much for listening our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. So up next, Alejandro,
Yes, I'm
And,
ready.
and
I'm
thank
going
you so much.
to-
So sorry, I should say thank you very much for your presentation as well, Uri.
Yeah, I think the sound was pretty low. So if you have any other question, you can ask me.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Sorry about that. I just had an issue with my the YouTube. Uri, was there anything else that you wanted to follow up before passing it to Alejandro? I should have said that.
Oh no. Yeah, sure. Later. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Alexander.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. So I'm going to share my screen and here. Okay, and I'm going to also control the time. All right. So thank you very much once again for the invitation for this presentation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk briefly about what is ITLAS, but then I'm going to focus in one of the biggest projects that we are doing, and we're going to launch very soon. And so what we are doing is basically focus, and we're going to talk is in Mexico right now, but it's for many countries, this intervention. Regarding Mexico, my colleague, Dr. Reina Martinez, she have sent a video and provide what is the status about the mental health care in Mexico. And as you can see in the video, I will share it later, or Becky can help us with us. We have a considerable gap in terms of mental health treatment in Mexico and developing countries in Latin America compared to Europe or compared to other developed countries. Therefore, what we aim to is to create online and free treatments and develop and deliver it to the persons. So this is our webpage, and you can go in, check around. It's in Spanish and English. You can see our projects that we have already. You will see this project too that we're going to show, also our publications in scientific journals. And the project I'm going to talk about is Bienestar Online. It's going to be conducted in Mexico, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, that is in Latin America, and it's going to be also in Europe, in the Netherlands, and in Spain. I'm going to speak a bit more about the Spanish here later, and we have a special slide for this. So this is the countries that are going to be included in Bienestar Online. This is how it's going to be called in the many countries. And in the Netherlands, it's going to be in Dutch, in English, because there is a considerable amount of English-speaking population there. The treatment is going to be based in cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, behavioral activation therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and positive psychology. It's going to be in 10 modules. And very important in talking about ethics and culture, I'm going to focus right now just in a brief, due to the time that we have, aspects that we have considered delivering, creating this treatment. And that first of all is the characters according to his panel and colleagues in order to follow the cultural adaptation for internet and mobile-based interventions. The first of all is the characters, and is to have a characters that identify the persons can feel like they reflect. So for example, in Latin America, I am from Mexico. We are like our skin color is brown. Mostly is like we are Hispanic, so that's we have somewhat persons with white skin colors and so, but mostly we are this. So we say like, okay, we have to create something that is reflecting the majority. So we have the graphic design team have delivered and developed this. Many options, and we have voted inside the research group of which one it is like going to reflect better and to be more like generalized. So this is the avatar that we are going to be using, and this is the one that was selected. We are also going to have females and males as characters, not only females. So because as you know, one of the most problems is like male population do not access to psychological treatments, not only online, also presential. And regarding this, it's very important, the language. So we are going to have it in 3 kinds of Spanish. That is for Mexico, Peru, and Ecuador. Then another kind of Spanish that is for Chile, other kind of Spanish that is for Spain. Then we're going to have it in Portuguese, Dutch, and English, as I have mentioned. And this is translated by clinical psychologists. Like they are working on this, so the persons can hear it, the contents, and they feel more connected to it, and with the words, with expressions, with the speed that is more natural. And we have also worked on terms of our stigma, trust, security, and confidentiality in terms of the treatment. And here I want to show you just a bit of how more or less is to create the platform in Figma, to design it, and how it's going to be working. This is part of what we are doing, that we are tailoring this, and we are testing this. We're going to test this with participants in order to improve it and to make it more easy to use, and they like it, and they can share suggestions before the platform per se exists. This is Figma, by the way. The study is registered, and as you can see, it's not yet recruiting, but we are going to start very soon. So thank you very much. And this is, if you want to contact besides the conference, you can. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Alejandra. And over to you, Anna.
All right, I will share a screen. Hopefully you can all see this.
Yep.
All right. So thank you for having me as well. I'll try to be brief. So as you all know, there are a lot of crises in today's world, like the war in Ukraine, the pandemic, the possible collapse of the global economy, the climate crisis, so many more. And these challenges we've had before all of this, I guess, happened, like mental issues being on the rise, loneliness, ultimately marginalization. They've certainly gotten worse in Finland. And so Finland has followed these global trends in terms of how the youth are doing, as we've heard from these previous presentations as well. And what we've done to help with these issues in the collective, Sekaisin Kollektiivi in Finnish again, is that first we've recognized that the youth is online. So we've gone online to reach them. And we've been doing this since 2017, 2018. And we have around 40 different organizations aboard or on board, and that's why we're called the collective. We offer two services. The first one is an anonymous chat service, Sekaisin Chat, on which people can go and chat with a professional or a trained volunteer about whatever they themselves want to. Personal agency and empowerment are core values that we hold in the collective. We have quite an extensive network of volunteers, but we still need more because, for example, last year, people tried to connect to the chat over 170,000 times. The second part is the Sekaisin Gaming Discord server, in which I work in. Here are some information. We have over 22,000 members, and the server is also anonymous, but it's geared more towards being an online community for the youth on their own terms, from which they can find peer support, friends, gaming buddies, and different activities and services that we, the workers, provide. I, for example, work with experts. I network with experts from different fields who come and visit the server, who in turn kind of connect and network with the youth and sort of steer them towards the appropriate services. So we provide low threshold support in a lot of ways, different ways. And now some ethical considerations I would like to kind of talk about. First and foremost, the Finnish law requires anyone who works or volunteers with kids has to present a criminal background check certificate that's provided by the police that states that they haven't been convicted of crimes against children or humanity in general, like human trafficking is an example of that. The second one is anonymity. We don't track or log people's personal information at all. People tell us what they want if they want to tell us anything at all, and we still don't keep a record of that data. The data we do track is purely statistical, like the number of people who visit the server, people who are active on the server, people who join our art therapy groups or game nights or Twitch streams, stuff like that. In addition, the platforms that we use, like Discord, they are rather secure as well and anonymous. So the risk of people's personal information getting into the wrong hands is minimal, which of course today in this digital age is a concern, of course. And then our ethics include democracy and transparency. We want the community truly to be on the youth's terms. So all major decisions come from them. And what they wish for the community, we as workers try to provide to the best of our ability. We also are transparent with the decisions and the data we collect. So anyone at all who wishes to see the data, we provide that for them to see. So the last one I would like to mention is the fact that we try to have as much freedom of speech as possible. The Discord terms of service gives us a certain outline that we have to follow, of course. And obviously, like, we can't have stuff like racism or homophobia or pornographic content. Those we, of course, have to moderate out and away. But we try to have as much freedom in the youth's expression as possible, because we provide a platform that is moderated by a safe adult and a group of volunteer moderators who can keep the conversation in check and give a kind of safe space, not an ultimate safe space, but a kind of safe space to have these difficult conversations in. And our server is open 24/7. We have a paid adult moderator present almost around the clock. And then our volunteer moderators take care of the server the rest of the time. The kind of youth we are trying to reach isn't going to go to an ultimate safe space. And these are the people that are in the biggest risk of being marginalized. So that's why we have this. Also, communication online, as you know, in general can be kind of lawless and kind of black and white radicalizing. So we tried to combat that in a way that we hope can be a little educational in how to have difficult conversations in a healthy way. There are more ethical considerations that I could and would like to talk about, but in regards to time, I think these were the most important ones. And if anyone is wondering, this is what a Discord server usually looks like. And here are some contact info, our socials. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's wonderful. And you've all kept to time, which is really nice. So we've got at least, if people want to stay up until the hour is complete, please do. If anyone has to leave at any time, as well, that's no problem. But I thought it would be nice to see if the audience had any questions. I certainly do, but I will hold off definitely because I would have a lot to say. But yeah, I wonder if anyone wants to say anything or ask questions to any of the panelists. Raise your hand or just, switch your mic on. And if there's some hesitancy, oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Whose hand? I see a hand. Oh, Min, yes. Hello.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. And also, I will put your video in the chat for you.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah, it's a very brief note. So yeah, thank you. I had a question for Uri on the innovation around CBT app for South Koreans. I think it's such an important piece of work, given that the stigma in South Korea around mental health is unbelievable, really. And the fact that you can get discreet care is great. But I've kind of reflected on how people actually aren't self-aware around that they can manage a lot of the mental health symptoms. A lot of the people don't even recognize that they have mental health symptoms. And my question was, how do you plan to tackle that adoption initially in South Korea? Because culturally, we're very unaware of the need itself.
Thank you, Min. That's such a good question. So I definitely agree with that there is a huge stigma in South Korea, and they are kind of in being denial mode of their depression, or they don't even recognize their depression or anxiety. So the way we are approaching is we are not asking people like, are you feel depressed or do you feel anxiety? But we are approaching to them like by using some cute characters. So we have a character called Riki, who is a very perfectionist. So we are asking people like, are you stressed because you are trying too hard? But you always feel like you are underperformed? Like that kind of question is something South Koreans can answer easily. So you made these 5 characters. It's a Ricky, Sheldon, a Jumpy, and Felipe, and the Pleasure. So we are approaching with these 2 characters, and by asking like not directly, but in indirect way. So that is our approach.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating because I see ethics linked with the usability. If the people using these apps or mental health interventions and they don't enjoy it, and we're trying to, kind of shove it down their throats, it's not ethical. So I think it just starts with, like yourself, making an effort into actually making it enjoyable to use. And a fun fact about Korea is we're obsessed with cute characters. We're genuinely, like, the whole country is crazy over it. So if anybody wants to Google like Chunshik, it's like my favorite Korean character. But anyway, thank you so much for your presentation. I thought it was great. And thanks, Becky. Yeah.
No, you'll have to drop that character in the chat because now you've made me curious. So yeah, thank you. Just going to let some more people through. Yeah, so other questions, hands up, and I will just throw one out there while we're waiting and other people are thinking. This is Anna. This is related to when you mentioned that you could provide data if anyone wanted to, check what you have stored. From a cybersecurity and a data protection angle, what if someone was maliciously trying to request data from another person? So how do you verify that the person is who they are before they receive their information? I know this is a technical question, so if you please, by all means, don't, but if you have a process in place.
Right. So like I said, we don't really track anything about anyone. And if someone wants to ask about another person, first of all, we don't have any information to give, but also we don't give any information about people or individuals in general. So they can ask, but we would never give anything. There really isn't any scenario where I would think that someone would even want to know. Mostly it's about if a person has been banned from the server and then a friend of theirs is asking when they'll be unbanned or why they were banned in the first place. That's information we don't give out. We only discuss bans and muting people with the person who has been banned or muted. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We've got a quiet crowd, but I've got more questions if not, and I'm getting some chat as well. Yep, coming through. I will keep going then, and if anyone wants to jump in, please do. Alejandro, it seems like this is incredible information when you are able to collect like local language and to be able to compare across different types of Spanish. And I thought that was like absolutely incredible. And I believe that you're like a research-based collective or initiative. What can you do to harness that language library effectively for something that can be very good to better serve people? Or how do you use, if you could dig into that data a little bit more about what can you do with that to help?
Yeah, thank you very much, Becky, for the question. I think that is very good question. And of course, that's among the many newest things that we are providing. Actually, I must say that also another member of the project and the ITLAS is here, Dr. Mercedes Almela. And She's Professor Associate Mercedes Almela, and she's from the Tilburg University. She's from Spain, but working there. So actually, what we are planning to do with this different kind of Spanish it's that we are going to work in terms of analyzing if the persons really identify themselves like with the Spanish that it was provided, and if they really feel like, okay, it's natural for me, I like it, it sounds like how I talk with someone else in my country, in terms of that. How we are going to put like some other people can learn about this is still on the progress. As I mentioned, the project is still to be like implemented. So once implemented, then we can check what it worked and what it we need to be improved. But basically, it's one of the huge things that we want to tackle right now, because when you think in Spanish, you just think in Spanish, Spain, or Spanish Latin America. And Latin America is many countries. Latin America is many places we talk very differently. If you hear a person from Argentina and you hear a person from Mexico, you can hear like very much differences in not only in terms of accents, but words, the speed, and how high, how low, and everything. So I think this project is going to be like innovative in order to progress on that. And yeah, I mean, also it's very good to have like my colleague, as I mentioned, Mercedes Almela, that she's also working in Netherlands and Spain, and she has like experience now of both places, but of course we're working also with people from Netherlands too, that for them is since they are since they were born, they hear Dutch and English and what is correct for them. So this is going to open like a huge data that we are very open to collaborate. As you mentioned, I put my email, the email of the group twice, because I want like people, if you are interested, write us, check our page. If you want to collaborate, if you want to do these things together, we are totally into that.
Okay, that's really great. And just to follow up on that, I'm aware of some research where like a group of users have started using an app in one language, and then they've switched with the same app into their native tongue or their natural preferred language. And it's interesting when you start to get into those comparisons, like I suppose with how do those changes map to outcomes or preferences on the tools they use or the way they use the app. So I find that really fascinating if you do cross language comparisons to their preference and non-preference. But again, it's the ethics. You want to offer the best solution as well. So thank you. Right, I think I'll just have a quick look at the chat, but please, anyone jump in?
I have a question.
Please, yeah.
Yeah. So we've developed this program called Mindly in Korean version, and we are in the process of making an English version. So there is some challenges we are facing now. The first one is the localization of the contents. You know, the principle of the program, like CBT or schema therapy or ACT are all the same across the country, but some of the examples we can use in the program are different by culture. So what we are doing is we are collaborating with a psychologist or psychiatrist in US, because we are making a US version program. But it's still challenging. It takes a lot of time. And the second challenge we are facing is how we promote or share these programs through what kind of channel. Because in Korea, it's much easier for us because we have a network or channels here. But in other countries, even though we have a good program, the challenge we're facing is how are we going to promote this program? So I want to ask any advice from you guys.
I might come in here, Becky, if that's okay.
Yep, please do.
So it might be something that, you know, I'm also more than happy to follow up afterwards, because we've done a lot of user research in the UK, and I think it really depends on what specific audience you'd like to target. You know, if you want to access patient groups, I find that very challenging. So I don't know if Becky has any top tips, but the ethics approval process in this country is traumatizing. If you want to go to general consumers, however, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and you almost have to go in without wanting a shortcut. I think you have to sit down with different users and try to identify what behavioral motives they have, what are the pain points, almost starting from the beginning, doing interviews. What is their journey? What do they want? What do they care about? Because those values might be slightly different. And I know it sounds silly, but I watched a lot of UK adverts to see what successful adverts worked for big companies and tried to understand like what are the commonalities, and we're going to use that in our marketing to try and identify like a strategy to get their attention. But yeah, those are my thoughts anyway.
Yep. We are targeting like general consumers because we know it is gonna be really painful if we target the patients, the FDA approval whatsoever. But it's still challenging. But yeah, I definitely agree. We should start from the interview or the basic market research with users in other country. Thank you. And I'm happy to talk more.
Yeah, and I suppose I don't know if anyone else has more insight on this, but NHS has platforms like Orca where they recommend sort of approved apps. And I don't know how many people actually use it in reality, but I do know that clinicians do use it if they don't know what CBT apps to. I just saw the chat, there's a yay for Orca. And it's not related to regulation. So you can put unregulated apps on there. And just a personal comment is, I think one of the weaknesses of the products in the UK is actually, let's put it the other way around. I think Korean products have its strength in like animations and characters, because Koreans are very picky with how an app looks. I know it applies to everybody, but in Korea, if it doesn't look amazing, no one's going to use it. So that strength within sort of Orca platforms or these other CBT apps that exist in the UK might be a key strength. So maybe like shout about it and make sure people know about it. And yeah, it sounds great.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I will definitely look at it. Thank you so much.
Well, this is really good. This is what this conference is all about, connecting people. And I'll drop the link in the chat for you as well. I think we do have to be slightly careful, though, when we put apps on an unregulated site. That comes with responsibility. And unless you know the product inside out and every skeleton in the closet, I would just be cautious about over believing into a number or fully trusting in that. So just being aware of the different ways and pieces of the puzzle, how to evaluate a product across many different ways of looking at that. So but yeah.
Definitely.
Just bringing it back to ethics, that's why.
Sure. So we are looking at the clinical. We are trying to collect the clinical evidence by measuring the depression and anxiety score, like we did in the clinical setting. Because I'm a psychiatrist, obviously. So yeah.
Okay, super.
I could just jump in quickly. Is that okay?
Please.
So this is kind of something that we do. So part of the platform we have is essentially kind of a digital apothecary. So the idea is to have a diverse portfolio of not just not mental health apps for various conditions, but different delivery types. And then essentially everything that goes onto the platform is vetted. So we have the data from partners' apps. We make sure they have kind of randomized control trials backing them. We try to use them when we are translating them or we are kind of tailoring them. We will set up kind of experiments, research teams, and have it independently regulated and evaluated. So this is like how we're trying to essentially vet applications. Ideally, you'd have kind of a standardized framework for not just app creation, but also kind of monitoring and evaluation. But the problem with this as well is the speed at the release of kind of mental health apps nowadays and the development far exceeds how much the research can be done. So this is a big issue. But in terms of if you wanted to say increase your marketing, you're very welcome to add it to the platform. It's all free. And we very much employ kind of a settings-based approach. So if you were targeting universities in, say, I don't know, England, or say Nigeria, Pakistan, if you were targeting schools, if it was, say, mental health NGOs that would distribute among their own beneficiaries, this is how we operate. So the distribution channels would sign up and select, say, your application, and then they can distribute amongst them. And you have the data fed back for kind of improvement within that specific population or subpopulation.
Thanks, Dominic. So yeah, any more questions coming through? Oh yes, Alejandro, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, wanted to add also, like in terms of protecting the participants' data and all what we are doing also, first of all, since the first platform we have created, we are not collecting any sensible data in terms of telephone or like address or how much the people earn or details like this. We just request an email address and we confirm that the person exists. And then through this process, we have a technical team that is controlling and checking like all the aspects related to who has access to the data. So we are not using other type of servers, for example. So we have all the data very well controlled in terms of that, and anyone that also requests or wants to remove the data can write us at any time and say like, I don't want to be part of it, so delete this information and so on. And with this also we have this problem in Mexico related to the stigma, I guess, instead of people don't want to say I'm going to a psychologist, people don't want to say I am using an app for my mental health. I'm not using, like, for example, like this platform or so. So with this, you give the anonymity for the persons to not say it. They don't have to indicate that they are using this platform if they don't want to, but we want them to use it. We want them to receive the benefit, because as Dr. Reina Martinez was explaining in the video, previous video, well, it's like a considerable amount of persons in Mexico, in Latin America, they are not receiving like the psychological treatment that they need. So with this, we create certain like participants are in trust that they can come and they can use the intervention like without having their identity being known. Just wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got two hands up now. Makbul, if you'd like to go first, and then Anna after.
Thank you, Becky. So we've discussed today about control conditions where you have a separate Discord server and you have participants in a trial effectively. And then we also see, you know, amongst our own children, gaming, or in a school environment or youth environment, people doing things online and the person is observing. I'm just wondering if the panel had any idea about where the boundary between those two is, and how do we know when we cross that boundary, and what parameters we use for knowing how to operate in those two spaces.
Maybe this one is for me, I guess. I guess it's mostly. So yeah, I guess it could be called a trial if we were to track information of what has been said, or if we were to compile data from the server, from the content of the server, which we don't do. We do kind of make mental notes about trends that we see, like, oh, so this is a topic that's under discussion right now, or maybe this topic isn't as important to the youth as it was before, but we don't really make any data analysis or stuff like that. So I guess that's one of the safeguards, or kind of built into, at least in our services. We don't compile data. It's not a trial in that sense, if that makes sense, or if I even answered your question. I hope I did.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. It's really around, if I myself as a child or young person am online, I'm on Discord and typing things in a chat, how do I know which third-party providers, which authorities are harvesting that or observing that data if I haven't signed up to a trial?
Yeah, and our Discord server is open for anyone. So this is definitely something that could be done. The sort of things that are talked on our server, I guess, could be used in a kind of menacing way, but it is definitely unethical from the get-go to conduct a trial with participants that haven't given consent. One thing is that any organization, any university, any place that would conduct an actual trial, of course, would never do this. So the trial itself would have to be from someone private or kind of nefarious. And absolutely, this is, of course, always a risk in a platform like this. And there's really next to nothing that we at this point can do about it, because it is anonymous. If a person never says anything on the server and is compiling data without anyone's knowledge, we would never know that. It's a risk. Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, we've got a few minutes left. I will start to thank the panelists, and if the last question comes through or last thoughts perhaps from each. We've got one hand, we've got two hands. Okay, we'll keep going. Kath. Kath, hello. Hand up. Maybe that's an old hand.
Sorry,
new hand.
Two mutes on. Just for Anna, do you have community rules when you're in the Discord asking people not to engage in that kind of behaviour, as well as asking around DMs and things like that?
Yes, of course. And if a person can't abide by the rules, then that's an automatic ban.
How do you, oh God, Bennett, I'm going down a slightly different, how do you check then that that's not the same person coming back under a different username?
The use of VPNs, obviously very prevalent these days, but usually if a person is banned, it's an IP ban, so they can't just come up with a different name and then come online again. Usually when people use alts, quote unquote alts, alternate users, which they've created using VPNs, we rather easily kind of see who they are. They rather sooner than later sort of give themselves out. So far it's worked that way. But of course, ultimately, there's no absolute way in an anonymous server like this to make sure that it never happens. But mostly it doesn't happen. And if I just may, I raised a hand. I wanted to ask the other panelists about, because we have confidentiality in terms of if someone approaches any of the workers in DM or direct message, private message, that falls under confidentiality, and we don't share that information elsewhere. Do you guys have confidentiality built in to your app or your service at all? Or do you need that?
Can I? Yes. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Anna. Yeah. For the questions, we do have. Actually, we are a very academical group, mostly working on universities. I'm also teaching in universities and so. And we get by the rules of ethics committees. We have to submit the project to an ethics committee, review it, and we have to provide in this ethics committee how we're going to protect the participants at all times and all moments of what we are doing. And so far, for these kind of things, like we also try to express, okay, we have a participant that is, I don't know, with certain symptomatology or has certain problematic. What we can do is the participant write to us also, we can work towards that. But in terms of, in this, we are clinical psychologists, but mostly working with so that sometimes I do not see that often in mental health applications or tools that there is no ethics committee validating this or that it's being implemented, it's being done, it's applied. And it seems okay. Sometimes I wonder, what are the rules of this? Who is controlling what is being done, implemented, and who checks that everything is being conducted properly? Because an ethics committee can come at any time and ask you, hey, do you put this on this? Can I check that? And you have the obligation to do it, because that's what you commit to an ethics committee. So I'm surprised many times when I don't see nowhere, nothing related to that. But if you go to our platform, the treatments, you will find in all of them the ethics committee approval. You can download it, have the file, contact the ethics committee. Hey, does this project exist? Blah, blah, blah. Totally, go ahead, please do it. But I would like to see it more often in other treatments also. I hope that answers your question.
We've got maybe like a minute or so left,
Yeah,
maybe a minute.
In Korea, there is a legal requirement to protect the users' private information, not only for the mental health care apps, for any other kind of healthcare apps, because the legal framework is pretty solid in Korea, and also the consumers here are very sensitive about sharing their personal information, because there was a big scandal. There was one AI company who collected the chatting between the couples, and they feed that data to train their AI. And they made an amazing like girlfriend AI, and that made a big scandal in Korea because they used like information between the users. Even though they got the agreement from the users, it was still a very big scandal. So here in Korea, the cultural and legal kind of are very tough to get the information from the users. So that is something we are working on here.
Thank you. I do have to end the session now. Dominic, I'm very aware that we missed you out, but if you can be super quickly, then we can include it. But otherwise, we do have to switch sessions now. So Dominic, if that's okay with you, we will move on. But if there is a short and sweet sentence you wanted to say.
Not at all. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to all the panelists and the guests here. Anyway, have a lovely day. Take care.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot,
all.
guys.
Thank you so much,
you.
panelists and everyone. Take care.